Hey, well, actually into today's video, we're going to have a look at weather for the next 8 to 10 days. In today's video, I've got quite a complicated scenario coming up as we're running up towards the end of May. I think we're going to keep the temperatures up quite nicely. You're going to be reasonably warm, but it's going to be unsettled, I think, with low pressure sort of around the country, dumbbelling around, and it's going to be quite hard to pin down the detail on this because there could be some heavy showers, maybe some thunderstorms actually through next week, but at the same time it's going to be hit and miss, so we're going to have a look at the detail day by day, I think, as we go through the next week to see what is happening. Quite a complex scenario coming up. Now, before I get on with the video, I just want to talk about the advertising in this video ads on my pages at GazWeatherVids.com. You hit play on those video ads, you'll be supporting GazWeatherVids. Thanks so much for doing that. So, starting off with the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts, we've got the ECMWF here over on the left, but GFS is on the right. 500 millibars, 80 pounds of beat is an area in the atmosphere. We've got high pressure and low pressure developing, and where it's really caused by those areas of high pressure and low pressure being moved around by the jet stream. These are the mean flow charts for 8 to 10 days time, so it's taking us up to around the 25th of May, can you believe, right up towards the end of the month. We've got quite a deep cut-off low here being signalled by the ECMWF to the south and to the southwest of the British Isles, but GFS has it in virtually identical position as well. We've also got quite a lot of blocking stretched out up to the north of the country, stretched out from western Russia through Scandinavia, out towards the north of Scotland and on towards Iceland and southern Greenland. Very similar from the GFS as well, although don't link up those high pressure areas in the Atlantic around Iceland and Greenland and to the north of Scandinavia and western parts of Russia. So what happens there is I've got more of a southerly influence actually coming up between those, that ridge to the northeast and the cut-off trough to the southwest. Anyway, that's quite a complicated scenario because that high pressure up to the northeast was sort of blocking the trough. The trough is down to the southwest, would be throwing up bands of rain, maybe heavy showers at times. But how much of an influence that ridge has is really the complicating factor here, because it's very close actually to being quite a dry and very warm scenario. But with that low pressure just where it is, southwest, it would imply that it's going to be quite an unsettled week coming up next week. But I've not got great confidence on it, I have to say. If we have a look at the GFS temperature ensembles and precipitation ensembles, we can see that we're going to be going above average. The red line here is where we should be at this time of year. All members of the ensemble going above average over the weekend, so we are going to be in for a warm weekend. Probably read about it's going to be a heat wave in your newspapers. I don't think it's going to be quite that hot, but nevertheless, temperature could get up to around 24, possibly 25 over the weekend. 25 is 77 Fahrenheit. That's well above where we should be for this time of year, so maybe a little bit of a heat wave coming up over the weekend. Now, the idea as we go into next week is that we keep the temperatures generally above average for quite a few days, so they do drop back a little bit as we get through towards around the 23rd, 24th of May, which is this area just here. But at the same time, as we keep in the temperatures up, we're also bringing through a lot of precipitation spikes. So, yeah, from around the 19th onwards, really, that's when the rainfall starts to come back. We do have quite a lot of spikes there as we go through to around the 21st, 22nd of May. And then we keep quite a few going out through the rest of the ensemble. That's for London, down in the southeast. If we have a look at the ensemble for Manchester, it's much, much wetter, so it implies that the worst of the rain through the coming week or 10 days perhaps is going to be out to the west, and perhaps not so much coming through to the east. Now, that's because we've got that trough sitting down to the southwest with low pressure sitting down southwest, throwing up those bands of heavy rain and showers, whereas the ridge is out towards the northeast. It's just how much influence that trough and ridge has, respectively, that's the complicating factor for next week, and it's the reason I don't have great confidence about what's happening through the course of next week. It does imply this, that the worst of the rain, by a long shot, going to be out to the west of the country. Now, the temperature anomaly for the next week is going to be a little bit above average. We're going from the 15th to the 23rd of May with this, and we're just in those pale salmon pink colours, so we're just above average. Most of Europe is still on the cool side, although it is very warm over Scandinavia and western parts of Russia as well. But really for southern, southwestern parts of Europe, that's where those anomalies are below average. But for us, we are going to be, I think, a little bit above average through the coming week. It's also going to be a wetter than average week. Not by a great deal, but yeah, we're above average with the precipitation from the 15th to the 23rd of May. That's as those bands of showers are being thrown up across the country. Notice that extends down into France as well, that general sort of blue area going down into France. That's telling us that the rain or the showers are going to be moving up generally from the south or the southwest. So here's the generic charts for next week, and you'll be able to see why things are so complicated with this. We've got this sort of link up of high pressure stretched out from the Atlantic to the south of Greenland, going through Iceland, and then going back towards the next ridge, which is sitting over western Russia and trying to get into Scandinavia. There's the trough of low pressure sitting to the south of the country on Tuesday. What happens through the course of next week is that we generally keep this idea of this ridge stretched out to the north of the country with the trough down to the south. This trough will be throwing up bands of showers or longer spells of rain at times, and that's sort of the scenario that we keep through the week. The low pressure dumbbelling around across the country, the ridge up to the north, but it wouldn't take much of an adjustment to keep this low pressure down to the southwest and have this ridge more influential. So that's why I'm just a little bit doubtful about the conditions through next week. But on the face of it, certainly this particular GFS from the 6 o'clock is very unsettled with this low pressure, no doubt producing quite a lot of heavy rain through the course of next week. Always wettest probably in the west, but all areas will be at risk of showers. This is how we're going to day 10, Sunday the 25th of May, right into the middle of the bank holiday weekend. And yeah, it's the same idea really. The high pressure is stretching through the Atlantic to the north of the country and then backing down in towards Scandinavia and western parts of Russia, with us stuck under this trough of low pressure. The ECWF is similar. There's the low pressure down to the south and southwest on Tuesday. There's the ridge extending through the northwest of the country, going through the charts. Really, it's the same idea. We keep this low pressure down to the southwest. Very complicated, complex scenario, but it means that we've got this ridge up to the north, always driest in the north and northeast, always wettest down in the west and the southwest. Could be very wet at times with this. Have to emphasise that, but if the charts that we're seeing today are right, there could be some really heavy rain across parts of the country next week. Possibly thundery as well, so we will have to keep an eye on it. But again, we're not far from this high pressure being more influential. But really, it's this trough down to the southwest that's churning away, throwing up these systems across the country, bringing showers or longer spells of rain. And this is how we go into the bank holiday weekend, the 24th of May, on into Sunday the 25th, and the low pressure is really over the country, implying lots of showers or longer spells of rain. Winds always coming from a southerly direction, southeasterly, or the time southwesterly, so it's not going to be cold by any means. Temperatures will be holding up, just that it could be really unsettled. And the GEM, the Canadians, sort of agree as well, although that ridge is very close to being more influential to the east of the country. The low pressure, the main low pressure, part of the low pressure, is off the coast of Portugal on Thursday the 22nd, which is just, again, backing up that idea, but I've got uncertainty about exactly how things are panning out next week. That low pressure, if it becomes cut off the coast of Portugal, will allow these ridges to be more influential and keep it mainly dry and very warm. So I've got to watch out for that. But on the face of it, really, it's this low pressure sort of in the west and the northwest of Europe, and it's dominating the conditions through next week. The Canadians are always a little bit different anyway, and as going to the bank holiday weekend, yet the low pressure is still quite influential, producing showers and longer spells of rain. So it's a complex pattern, it's a complicated setup that's developing next week. I think the temperatures will be holding up nicely, but you're going to have to watch out if the charts this morning are right for some really heavy downpours, particularly out in the west and down in the southwest, but probably extending northwards and eastwards with time. And that's really what I've got to watch out for through next week. Could be quite wet, but also quite warm. Temperatures holding up fairly well, but risk of some heavy, thundery downpours at times. But it is a complex situation, so the models may not have this entirely pinned down. Now, if you're interested in what's happening for the bank holiday weekend, come back to the events page this evening, because I'll have the third update for the bank holiday weekend, so come back for that full look ahead for the bank holiday. That's all for now. Hope you found the video interesting. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.